Hey everyone, it's Crystal from Sober Onions Podcast. It's season 2. This is episode 3 with my friend John, who is in Virginia. Thank you so much, John, for coming on with this 3-hour time change. So it's really late for you. So I really, really appreciate you coming on. So why don't you say hello?
Hey, everybody. No problem. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, you are a 20-year Navy vet and you are married, have 2 kids, super successful. I can't wait to hear all about that. I have some questions about your sobriety. You're almost 10 years sober, so 9 years and 3 months. So you're doing amazing. And I follow your blog. So I've also kind of tapped into you a little bit because I like to know information about my addiction, about what I'm going through, and just also I have a lot of mental health that I'm also dealing with. So I really enjoy everything that you're putting out there. And so right now, I am 8.5 months sober, which is incredible because when I started this, I was only a little over 3 months and I had just gotten out of a women's treatment center. I was in a rehab there full time after I went through a detox program, and it rocked my world. I have never felt so powerless in my whole life. I am 42 years old. I was 41 at the time. My 2 daughters were not talking to me. I am now talking to one of them. So I'm continuing my sobriety for personal reasons and also so that I can reunite with my youngest daughter. So there's lots of motivation for me now. And this journey has been incredible. Like I was telling you, I was listening to my episode 2, and it's about drinking at work. And I've just learned so much, even just about audio and how to podcast and about guests and doing my homework. And so I'm really, really enjoying this journey and having these followers just be so interested in my life, first of all, which is wild. I'm getting ready to go on my first trip to the snow in a couple days. So I'm very stoked about that. That's going to be a really amazing trip with my family. And then after that, I'm actually going home to Florida. So that has kind of strucken up a lot of things. I am very in touch with my sponsor right now because I know that when I get there, there will be a lot of triggers. I have not been home since I've been sober, and I haven't been around my friends. I haven't been around my old employees, around my dance studio. I have not seen anyone since I've been sober, and they have never seen me sober. So I feel like they are a little in shock. They are tiptoeing around what are we all going to do? Because obviously, when we hung out, it was wine parties and it was doing events and dancing events and teaching classes and mimosas and restaurants and bars. And so this time around, it's going to be very different and I'm going to remember everything, which is incredible. I will actually remember everything and I will get to spend so much time. And it's really funny because I was putting my schedule together of when I'm staying with my daughter and when I'm staying with friends and what I'm doing and where I'm going. And I was like, wow, I'm going to be able to do so much on this trip because I have all this time and I'm going to have all this energy and I'm going to remember everything and I'm going to wake up on time and I'm going to be able to stay up and not be hungover. And so this trip is really going to be a big deal. And I think I'll be able to talk a lot about it afterwards to see how it went and if, there was certain things that triggered me. I know that the other day I talked about being in my new job and being the oldest one there and being asked to go out for a drink. And that's a whole new thing that's different. So I'm adjusting to all these new things. And I think that's something that you don't hear about that often. A lot of times when you're listening to podcasts or you're watching social media or you're reading about it, it's like everybody's talking about the what you're gonna do, what's in front of you and how you're gonna succeed and what you need to do to succeed. And I'm like in it. So I see all those things and I'm working for those things and I'm busying myself and staying sober and doing my program. But I don't think anybody is talking about all the fear that, I fear going on an airplane and not drinking. And that's a first too. When I traveled, that was a big drinking time for me. I would I would have my drinks when I traveled to the airport. I would have them at the airport. I'd have them on the plane. I'd sleep on the plane so that I would have my nap and be able to just do it right where I landed. And I traveled so much that way. And so there's fear there that how am I going to feel when I'm on this plane? And also, I was a flight attendant and I got fired from my job because of alcohol. So there's all these mixed feelings. And then when I get there and my daughter's never seen me in recovery, I mentioned this to my sister the other day. I said, I'm so excited to see my daughter. And she said, oh, she's never seen you sober. And I said, actually, yeah, she has, because, I went bouts. How do you think I raised them? I wasn't like drunk 24/7. I was functional. And then my sister said, no, let me rephrase this. Your daughter's never seen you in recovery. And there's a huge difference because right now I am in recovery. I'm recovering from my past. I'm recovering from the choices that I've made. I am still having to deal with things from my drinking. And I think a lot of people start falling out at this point. I'm seeing it. I've been in the program and I've been sober now for 8 months. And when I came into the sober world per se, I knew everyone and there was so many people, and then it was just seeing them drop one by one and one by one and one by one and losing them and then them not coming back. And so I think it's because we don't talk about how hard it is and when we fall really hard. And that's when I read your story. You are this incredible person. You and your wife are a power couple. You're successful. And for someone like you, right, in quotation marks, to be an alcoholic or an addict is just shocking. And so I'm so excited to hear everything you have to say and who you are. And so I'm going to open the floor to you. I want you to introduce yourself. Tell me how long you've been sober, because I want to hear it, and also how you've stayed sober and what were the really hard mountains in your sobriety that you felt like you have overcome.
So, hi, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic. Um, so for us, well, for me, uh, it- there's a blog on the Good Enough Dad called The Hard Way Down, and it really explains pretty much everything that happened to us in detail. And those are some of the things that you and I'll talk about. But it's much more extensive there. So, what, 10 years, 3 months, and 1 day? Or no, 9 years, 3 months, and 1 day. Um, so in 2012, we went to the hospital with our soon to be third child, Olivia, my first girl. And we returned home without that. So she passed away after 4 days, and my wife had what's called a maternal near miss. She hemorrhaged really bad. Emergency hysterectomy that went sideways, internal bleeding for hours, and doctors were not doing what they were supposed to do. And it ended up being a 27-day in the ICU. 21 pints of blood later, she got to come home.
Wow.
I'm very proud of her just yesterday. She donated her first pint of blood back. So she has this goal to give back those 21 pints. So yesterday she did one, and she's got 20 more to go. So I'm very proud of her. But I appreciate the success notion. There's the lip smack. It's been very difficult. I'm a sailor, so the stigma is, so I'm a U.S. Navy sailor, 20 years, I'm a chief. The stigma is around the world that sailors drink, and that's not wrong. Um, I did it though to self-medicate. I drank before Olivia passed away, but I really fell head first, and I talk about this often with some of my students. I teach leadership and ethics now for the Navy. Um, that was my last ride, yay! And I tell this story about falling headfirst into a bottle, and the reason I tell that is because it can happen so fast to anybody. Because for a long period of time, for the first 14 years, it was 12, 13, 14 years of my career, I was super, like, I was on this super Star Trek. I was running through it. I was going, you know, to the moon. And life and God will humble you really fast, really, really fast. One of the things that I remember so vividly from that time frame is that, like, at year 10, um, we were in a position where I literally thought to myself, like, damn, we got it made. Like, we're good. Like, we don't have any debt. Like, we have our mortgage payment, and we have a above ground pool, and, like, we made it. Like, we're good. And that's when that's when God will say, have you though, really? Let me throw some challenges your way, and let's see what happens. And so during that time, I fell headfirst into a bottle, and it was a solid 5 month binge. And what I mean by 5 month binge is, I mean 5 month binge. I mean no breaks, nothing. I was finding excuses to get home from work early so I could start drinking. I was showing up to work hungover extensively. And the only breaks that we really got were when we went underway, and those underway periods were not fun. I've never been seasick a day in my life, and I've been on ships for 15 years. When I was drinking, those first couple of days did not feel very good, and it wasn't because I was seasick. I, the dumbest reason. You ready? You ready? Do you want to know why I got sober? It's the dumbest reason ever. I was tired. That was it. I was tired. So when you drink as much as I drank, and I'm sure you can relate, you don't get good sleep. You don't really sleep. Like, your eyes close and you wake up and you feel either hungover or exhausted, or like you could try to go back to sleep, but you can't go back to sleep because your body's saying, no, no, you need to get up and drink. Or your body's saying, sorry, bro, sorry, sis, this ain't gonna happen. So you might as well get up. I was tired. I was just tired. And so on the 19th, I I was done. I just couldn't do it anymore. And the next day we had so Libby passes away, fall headfirst into a bottle, and things become extremely difficult in a marriage. I don't know if you know the numbers for people who are bereaved parents that make it. It's very small. And we were nearly that part of that couple, or part of that number. So things get extensively um, difficult, and I made some other poor life choices. My psychiatrist and I were trying to figure out the proper meds to use to not necessarily curb my drinking, but to help my mental health, because it's been exhaustive. I also write about that on the blog, goodenoughDad.org. Go check it out. And so um, it came out, and it was determined that I am bipolar 2. And so when you put a bipolar person on an SSRI, those waves, so like everybody has waves, the waves of a bipolar person, which are super duper depressive and dark, and then they become way, way manic, they are exasperated. tenfold. And so I was put on an SSRI, and that's when I just said, screw it. We're done. Like, we're not going to do this. And the same day, I got an apartment and I moved out the same day. One, so I could just drink and not have to deal with the voice, and which was my wife, the voice of reason. And two, I didn't want to see my kids to see me like that. And it ended up getting to a point where I was issued a no contact order, because I turned the security alarm on the house off, the house that we owned, like an idiot. I was playing games that I shouldn't have been playing. And we have our first hearing the next day after this sobriety starts, our first custody hearing. And it was like, oh my goodness, like I've never been, like, I was on the other side of this. I came from a broken family. When I was 15, I had to go in front of a judge and say, hey, yeah, I want to live with my dad. But I was never in that seat. And I was made out to look like a, I don't even want to use the word. Yeah, you can figure out it. I was made to look like a jerk. And I was, but some of the stuff was like, okay. But that really kind of put things into perspective. I had no idea that my kids and my wife had already moved away. They were gone. My house that I was paying for, and the mortgage I was paying for, and the apartment that I was paying for, the house was empty for a couple months that I had no idea. So me not leaving that courtroom and going to get wasted was my, like, one of my early and biggest tests, right? Is the very next day. And I was like, so I have two choices. Like, I can either go and make all of those things that were just said about me true, or I can keep on this track of being sober and see how far I can take it. My whole point of view at that time was, okay, so I've tried this. So, like, I've tried the binge thing. I've tried the self-medicating, right? I've tried mixing in pills with this, right? And I was deemed later on, and I'll tell you about it, as an alcohol dependent. Not just an addict, but a dependent. And in the Navy, there are two very different classifications. So there's a lip smack. Where was I?
Well, you brought up a couple things that I wanted to ask you about. So you basically, I mean, you're a chief in the Navy again, which is amazing, and you have this great life, and then all of a sudden you have to deal with the loss of a child, and then you have to deal with, you know, your marital bliss coming crashing down. Meanwhile, you still have two other kids that you are responsible for. And then I think you said something that I have seen a lot in this journey that people have talked about, where they moved out and they they moved out because they didn't want people to see their drinking, and by the time they had their binge, they regretted that, and there was no time to come back. There was no time to basically build that family back together. And I feel the same way. I got divorced one time. I've been divorced twice. I've been engaged 4 times, so that's a whole nother story. But I know that one of my marriages, I went through the divorce and I drank so much through it to cope with it, in my mind, to cope with it when it was repairable. There were lots of things that were repairable, and I did not care because I was drinking, and I didn't care. And I've talked to a lot of people even now, and I tell them, like, they're in it, maybe they're 60 days sober, and they're like, my marriage is on the rocks, and I'm like, listen, try if you can, because you don't want that to slip away. I have two friends right now, they just had their 5-year anniversary. She just celebrated 1 year sober, he just celebrated 6 months sober. and they spent the first anniversary together sober, and they like all they can say is we're so glad that we stuck it out. We're so glad that we got through that not little, large mountain per se, and we stuck it out. And I that's my encouragement to those that are listening, that if you are in that situation now and you feel like it's not repairable, don't assume, because there's a chance that it could be. So you're there, and where at this point, what you're solo, the Navy's now getting involved, your wife is out of the house. Where are you at now?
So, but I just want to kind of touch on one thing that you just said. So, I mentioned like it was literally like 3 hour window. I found a spot that was open, and I put the down payment in, and I went and took my truck and I loaded up the essential things that I needed, i.e., a bed and some other things, and I moved into an apartment. One of the reasons that I did that, and I thinking about it now, because I was not drinking that day during this time, but I felt, and I'll never forget walking into Olivia's room and seeing like things that she should be wearing or whatever, because this was happening in July. This was months later. No, this happened in August. Um, Olivia passed away in May. So I remember thinking to myself, there's no way. There's no way that I can fix this. It is so beyond repair. Like I have messed up so many times and I've done so many things wrong. There's no way that I can fix this. So, yes, to you guys listening out there, you folks listening out there who think that you've gone too far, you'll never know unless you ask. Um, so, yes,
So how did you
I
and your
appreciate
wife,
you bringing that.
yeah, how did you and your wife, get back together and then go on this journey together?
So, what happened was we had that first hearing, and I got to go back into my house. And she is from Kentucky. I'm from California. It's a weird, long story. Um, Maybe we make this a series. Just saying. No. So it was a long story, and so we met in high school in Kentucky. I went my junior and senior year there. Joined the Navy from there. Joined the Navy to get away from there, and we ended up together. So what happened was we had the hearing, and then the no contact order went away because she didn't show up to court. And I'm we've talked about it. She did that on purpose so that it would go away, so that we could talk. Um, some of my ill-fated decisions dealt with money, and they dealt with um, just being an all-around not good person. And so I was out to sea during Hurricane Sandy hit, and we were extended. So, like me deciding to get sober and then going away and then getting extended was like the best thing for me. It was the best thing. Like, I'm sure that there are times in that frame that I could have relapsed easily, but I didn't because we were underway. It was perfect. And believe me, going underway does not stop people from drinking. There are rules and regulations, don't get me wrong, but there are many days that I spent on ships with access in which, it's not supposed to be. Anyways, so there are tricks to the trade. Um, so we started to email this, like, all right, these are the parameters. This is what we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about us. We're going to talk about the kids, money, this, that, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if it was me. I don't know how it started. I really don't know how it started. Like, but there was a simple conversation of what does reconciliation look like? What really irritates me a lot about this is that I talked to my lawyer probably a month before this and said, hey, we need to reach out for reconciliation because like I can't keep doing this. And this is the one that I was meant to be with. Like, she went to college after we graduated high school, and I was the Navy, and I went through 2 tours, Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom, and she did her thing, and we were apart for like 4 or 5 years. We were in different relationships and the whole 9 yards. And one day in June, she came to Virginia Beach, and we've been together ever since, for the most part. So somehow it started this conversation of reconciliation, and I think it was something like really, really small, and there were some, very eased like steps involved. So the first time I got to see my kids, like I missed both of their birthdays that summer. Um, it was in a hotel room in this place that I hated so much in Kentucky. And then there was Christmas in Gatlinburg. Well, like Christmas coming up in Gatlinburg that we spent together. And there were a few things like to just see if like, do we still got it? Like you put the other things aside. Let's put our mistakes down for a minute. Let's put our swords down. Um, let's not reopen and rehash, relitigate what we know already. Is there a possibility of a future, right? And so we figured out that there was, and it was very difficult. So after Olivia had passed away, I was seeing a psychiatrist, but I never really saw a therapist like to talk through things. But I learned a lot of stuff in treatment, and I'm going to get to that in just a second because I know you want to know. So we saw people individually. So I saw a psychiatrist, and then I saw a therapist by myself. In July, so before I moved out, I got a DUI. And in the Navy, that's a big, big, big no-no. And that should have been the wake-up call, right? Like that should have been the wake-up call. And it wasn't, because I knew the rules and I knew how to not get in trouble with the Navy. I knew that I was going to be screwed by civilian courts, but the Navy has a way that they can get you both. And I knew a way around that. And, I didn't have to deal with that. So get sober in October, and then April comes around, and I was finally able to get into treatment. So like treatment for the Navy is great, but it is backed up. It is like, it takes time to get in, which is really hard
I
because
actually didn't know that. Someone else brought that to my attention with the military treatment, that it is backed up, that unfortunately there is a lot of people that need help. And I've talked about this before. When I went to detox, I was in shock. I couldn't believe how many people were detoxing. And it blew my mind. And so for you saying that, I think people need to know that. I think they need to know the issue is real, that it's a real thing that people are struggling with right now.
right, trying to get into treatment, like trying to take the step to get help and then being shuttered away. Like, can you imagine, like, oh, well, what's the point? I mean, that's to me, that's my, like, to me, that would be my perspective. Like, what's the point? So I had to wait until April 23rd. I went to 21-day outpatient treatment. And you ever seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? So there's this mixed bag of people in treatment with me. And so there were individual things that we did. There were a lot of group things that we did. But so they put you in a room when you first start, and so you piss every day. And they test for everything and anything, alcohol, drugs, anything. So like some of the meds that I was on, like for anxiety and stuff, couldn't take the whole time that I was there. Like, okay, wow, this is the time to take me off anxiety meds. Probably not, but okay. And I had to do it. So I was in there with an anesthesiologist from the Navy, which made me very concerned. I was in there with so I was a first class at the time, so E6. So I was in there with a couple of senior chiefs and mass chiefs, so like higher ranking enlisted folks. And I was in there with, it was a whole mixed bag of successful people and brand new people. And um it was like the greatest group I could have asked for. And I think that we even had a couple that were really, fake it till you make it type guys, especially the doctor who joined us was very much fake it till you make it. And in the beginning, um, that's how she was. And when we walked out of there, it wasn't fake it till you make it. She had bought in, and that helped. And I think actually the group helped to do that because I don't know how many times she used that stupid phrase. And we were all like, ma'am, doc, at this point, we're using first names. Jen, are you serious? Like, do you not see? Like, we're listening to your stories. You have an issue. Like, you're here because you have an issue. You're here because you want to keep your license and you want to keep practicing medicine. We get it. Like, you all, your category is inundated with addicts and alcoholics, and this is your first stop. Is in extensive treatment. So, and it was our encouragement, I think, that built that rapport with her, that where she wasn't faking it until she made it. So, 21 days, you go and you do your thing, and you supposedly come out and you're wonderful. The Navy does something really well, though, is that we have a year-long aftercare. And so you have to go every week to aftercare. It doesn't matter where you're at. Every week you have to go to it's like a 12-step. You kind of go, like, during treatment you go to AA, you do this, you get your stuff signed off. You work the steps, and then your aftercare, you continue to work the steps. The Navy doesn't push one or the other. I liked AA. In my area, it's a whole lot of older people.
Mhm.
And so it was a little difficult to like really connect with them. And there was a lot of meetings after the meetings, if you know what I mean. And so it wasn't my jam in this area. So I really depended on the Navy's stuff. So I connected with Navy meetings a whole lot more than outside meetings. And that's just the way that, I live in Southern
Yeah.
Virginia,
I
which
I really do agree with you, though, and I think it's something that I have put on my platform, is that AA is not the only program, and even though I am in like full blown AA, it's important to me because my grandmother, who my sobriety date is her birthday, who I was very very close to, she was 27 years in the program.
that's so cool.
So like for me, it's very very personal, because I am actually going to be doing a podcast on the genetics
Ah,
of all of this, and
good.
family, your family tree. And my family tree is definitely mostly all alcoholics. My parents kind of were the only ones that weren't, and thank God, because my brothers and sisters don't drink. But my kids need to be careful, and their kids need to be careful. So
Isn't that
there's
scary
it's
as
very, very
parents,
scary.
right?
Very scary.
So my dad was sober for 35 years. And, it didn't skip. Like, I have older brothers who are alcoholics, and I have a younger brother who's an alcoholic, and I'm an alcoholic. And, um, you know, Mandy doesn't drink, thank God. But I'm so scared because, like, before I joined the Navy, like, I played football in high school and I was halfway decent. And I played a bunch of other sports, and I was kind of a popular jockish type kid. And I would go to parties and there would be booze, and I didn't like any of it. So I would go to like the woods to pee, and I would dump whatever I had out
Hmm.
just to fit
Oh,
in.
I didn't drink at all. I didn't drink at all until after I had
And it
kids.
was the
So
Navy.
it's different.
I'm so glad that you talked about this. So, one of the things that has really kind of turned me away. So, like, after Olivia passed away, our relationship was very fractured, we'll say, and it wasn't very good. Um, I had a lot of questions and I didn't have any answers. I decided to kind of to to go back to church. And when I went back to church, and when we go to church, we don't just sit on the sidelines, we get involved. So I was approached to help start a Celebrate Recovery in our church. You would have thought that that's a really good thing. And it was. It's a lot of time to become a certified Celebrate Recovery like facilitator. It's a lot of time. It's 2.5 hours every single Thursday night for 6 weeks. So the week before we're ready to graduate, we've done all of the things, the steps. We've like confessed super sins to each other. Like that's one of the last phases. The week before, our pastor comes to us and says, we're not doing it. There's not a need. And we were so blown away because we were like, what? Do you not see the same congregation that we see? Because we know that there's a need, bro. Anyways, Celebrate Recovery is one. That was the
Yeah,
why I bring it up.
I do
Yeah.
celebrate recovery myself too, so I do that as well. So I am definitely in that. So I have a couple questions because we are coming to an end. So I'm so curious about some stuff with you. And so two things that are just huge for me. I love that you and your wife stuck together and that you really took this journey on together, even though it was hard, even though you had more things happen to you than I can even imagine. I've never had to lose a child or even I've never even been in the military. So you have things that you have experienced that people cannot relate to, but then there's a bunch of people that can relate to it. Like you said, you were sitting in the circle with a ton of other people with these eclectic personalities and different stories, but you're in the same situation. And that's us right now, is that we are in the same situation because we choose and have the desire not to drink. That is all this is we have the desire not to drink. And that's why I'm here and I'm working that. But things that I find interesting in your story is that you and your wife stayed together. And something you and I discussed before we started the podcast was trust factors with addicts and alcoholics. And that sort of falls in suit with your marriage and how you go from any relationship, whether it be married, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever that dynamic is, if someone has messed up so bad, like you said, how do you actually get and earn trust again? Because like you said, as alcoholics and addicts, we tend to get written off. You know, people like to write us off right away. There are less chances. I know for me, I don't personally, I keep my sobriety anonymous in my workplace because I just don't want them to judge me, because I want them to see who I am as what I'm capable of. But
Just
it's
hope they
also,
don't Google you.
yeah, and they can, which is crazy because
I
I'm
know.
like all over. And I'm sure they have. It's just not something that I am, out there bragging about, like, hey, have you listened to my sober podcast? But what and I deal with that. I've said that on social media. I feel like there are family and I have friends that are just waiting for the shoe to drop. This trip to Florida. I've had people say to me, "Are you sure you're ready to go back? Are you ready to vacation in your hometown sober? Like you're not even a year sober yet. Are you sure you want to go back?" Like people do not trust me. I've had, family that have said, "Are you done yet? Can we go out now?" There's all these dynamics of there's no real trust. And then how do you make it in a marriage or a relationship and move on and go forward? I want to hear how you guys did that.
Okay, so I'll start this. First off, I'm very proud of you. I told you that when we started this whole thing, I think our first interaction was me telling you how proud I was, because you're at the very beginning of this and you're killing it, right? So you got to keep staying strong. So let me ask you this: is trust earned or given? That's a question to you.
Earned, I would say.
So that's what 99% of people say, but that's not necessarily true. So when we think about trust, we think about trust being this super duper dead thing. dead thing, this thing that is, will die on our sword. But did you drive to work today? Did you go
Yes.
through an intersection?
Yes,
Did you trust that the person that had the red light was going to stay there?
I did.
You had to. You
I
had no
had to.
choice.
I didn't have a choice.
So you gave that person trust. So uh, this is a lesson in which we teach, and it's enlightening because it takes two to tango. Period. So the relationships can be so fractured that trust is gone. It's fully eliminated. And when that happens, there really is not much hope. But what I can say about our relationship and any relationship that people are saying or thinking to themselves, it's so far gone, whatever and if ever that person is willing to trust you at all, as much as it may hurt, you have to be honest, right? You and I have spoken about the little white lies. It's easier to turn your head around. It's easier to tell the little white lies. It's easier to do the wrong thing. It's easier to take that shot. Nobody's going to know. No big deal. It's easy to do those things. It's very hard to be honest and truthful. And honest and truthful is not going to happen all the time. But if you're at the stage in a relationship where you have burnt bridges, you're whatever opportunities, if you get them to be honest, you have to be honest, no matter how bad it hurts, no matter what you think the consequences are going to be. You have to be honest, period. um, and that's just a little, that's a little experiment we do in one of my classes, is where we talk about trust. So trust is individualized, earned is individual, yes, given is organizational, and but it starts somewhere. It has to start with given trust. You have to give it. That person has to feel comfortable enough to give it. And there are some people in relationships who are just not willing. They've come to a point where they're over it, they're done. And it's sad, because you can try as hard as you want, but unless that person budges, you're not going to get anywhere.
Absolutely. And I do feel like you're right. Like I do know that my family has given me trust. You know, I have burned bridges. My daughter's given me trust, and I hold it as this precious gift now, where before I didn't care. I only cared about myself and about drinking, and now, and it's crazy too because I feel like time's flying all of a sudden. It's like all of a sudden time is flying by. Yet when I was drinking, time was not a concept for me. It was my clock revolved around when can I drink next. And so now that I don't have that schedule, I have time, but it's just going by really fast because I have all these really, really precious things that I care about that I don't want to miss out on. I want to be there for them. I want to be present. I want to, give them reasons to trust me. And so I know that it's possible because I'm doing it. And if anybody can do it, I can do it. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And that's the truth, because I have so many stories, and I've had such a crazy life, and I haven't even, hit the tip of the iceberg with, my story yet. And we're in season 2. So, it's, for me, it's very exciting, but it's also because, like you said, I know the truth. I know who I really am. I know what kind of person I am, and I know what kind of person I want to become, and the type of person I want to be, and how I want to be there and be present and love on these people that love me. And I could not do that if I was not sober.
Mm-hmm.
Plain as day. Plain as
Yeah.
day, and so for me, that is just my, that's my continuous story. That's, where I'm coming to acceptance in all of the things that I am now changing in my life, because the reality of me or someone like me is it's one extreme to another extreme. It really, really is. And that part is hard. And I don't know if you've read the book Dash. If you haven't, definitely read it. But Dash, whenever we die, our tombstone has, it'll say Crystal, my birthday is 1997, right? And then it'll say dash, and then when I die. And that dash in between is so important because that's exactly who you are. And so we have to really think about if we are making that dash something that is a good dash, a bad dash, an okay dash, a little dash, a long dash, what type of dash we're leaving in this world and how we're imprinting it. And so sobriety definitely gives you the clarity to do that. And so I feel so blessed that God gave me that gift and I'm holding on to it. And so I am so happy that you came on the show and I can't wait till we do it again. And with
Yes.
that, is there any questions that you have for me before we close out?
I have so many questions for you, but we're gonna go ahead and close out because I remember I've listened to all of your episodes. One thing that I do want to know is, are you ready to go back? So that's
To
gonna be
Florida?
really, yeah, it's gonna be really challenging for you.
Yeah, the thing I'm going to be seeing my oldest daughter. So that right there, there's zero tolerance. There's zero tolerance for anything that I would even ever do before. And so that's just an easy goal for me. I feel like that's going to be easy. I feel like this is the thing I think of, driving past old bars and restaurants, especially ones that I used to run, because that's what I did. I ran large restaurants in my county. And so that will be a lot of memories. And I feel like I I feel like, do I like stay away from all those things? I drive around them. There's these things and thoughts that you think about that you would not think about normally if you were going on vacation. And so, being newly sober, I really have to, put my armor on, which is, gearing up with my sponsor. I'll be in touch with her every day. I'll be FaceTiming her. There's a lot of accountability that's going into this trip and also finding a meeting while I'm there. And to be honest, I don't know. I'm scared, and I'll be totally honest. I feel ready because I have so much to lose
Right.
and so much to gain, and I really want my family there, which I don't have any family there, but I lived there for 20 years, so my friends are my family, and they watched me in my addiction for 20 years and supported me through the whole thing, which blows my mind, because I opened dance studios and I owned large, big businesses, so I needed teams of people to help me. And so we're having kind of a reunion, and like I think they just are. I am I'm nervous that they're going to feel like they have to tiptoe around me, if that makes any sense. And so
So
the
they
next
will,
episode will be
I
really good
bet.
because I'll be able to tell everybody how it really
Yeah.
was.
I bet that they will, but think about this for me. When you get to a point after you talk to your sponsor, to go to a meeting, whatever, of how empowered you'll be when you can just ride down the road and you don't even really notice those old places, those old habits, right? Those old hangouts where they have no more power over you.
Mhm.
They don't. They're not calling your name. They're not calling your name. I promise. They're not calling
Oh,
your name.
they're not.
They're
I
not.
can assure you, because
Exactly.
and that's the
Uh,
thing that I know is I'm going to see so many places. Like, there were comedy clubs that I went out to and I drank so much I slept in my
mhm.
car,
Yeah.
to the next morning. And that's how I stayed out of trouble was, I didn't get a DUI or any of that when I should have, because I tried to stay under the radar and I thought I was so smart. I thought I was like, listen, I'm gonna sleep here for a couple hours, wait till in, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. I'll drive home. Well, guess what? Mom wasn't home. I wasn't home for my kids. Never
Yeah.
even thought about that part. Said bye to them at 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. I'm going to a comedy club and didn't come home until the next day. Okay, so there is so much wreckage that I did that I had no clue that I was even doing because I was so far in my addiction. And I thought that I was doing good because I wasn't out there driving and killing people.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a really good trip. I'm really excited, but it's definitely going to challenge my sobriety, which I believe I'm ready. And then it will be really, it's going to be intense. And then it'll be something that I will share with everybody on the podcast. So
Yes,
it'll be interesting.
I can't wait, and then I can't wait to do this again. I'm feeling something very cool here,
Awesome.
and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon, and we can go into because we didn't even get to some of the early
I know
stuff.
that's what's crazy about podcasting is I told everyone in season 1, I was like, you have to come back next year because
Right? Yeah.
every single time I interview someone, we're like, we didn't even get to talk about this or that, but there's still so
No,
much great content.
I
And
haven't even
so
told you some of the other crazy stuff.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed everything so much, John. I wish you and your family just a great new year, and we will be getting together again. And
Yay.
with that, I'm going to close out, and I will let everybody know that you will see John's bio on the website as well as on Spotify and iTunes, on Apple, as well as all the other platforms like Google and anything else you listen to a podcast on. We will be there, Sober Onions. And if you're looking to support the podcast, just go to soberonions.com and go to the patrons button or donate button. And we are just sharing the message to help other people who are just like me and they have a story and they need a little bit of encouragement knowing that they are not alone. So, with that, guys, this is Crystal from Sober Onions Podcast. Remember, if I can do it, we can do it.